So big applause for Roman Pronskiy.
Thank you. Hello, folks. Today I want to talk with you about the PHP Foundation. And I want to start with this question. How do you think, how many developers worked on PHP in 2021? I'm gonna, yeah, if you can shout.
20.
No, just 2 guys. These 2 guys, can you imagine, like, PHP powers like what, 70% of the web, and just 2 developers were paid to work on PHP, to support it, to maintain in 2021. And how we ended up with this situation, having only Dmitry Stogov and Nikita Popov getting paid to work on PHP. This is the buzz factor of the project. And the buzz factor, usually they define it as a number of people who, if they are hit by a bus, then the project basically stops existing. But I would like to think about it in a more pleasant way, like if someone from them decides to be a bus driver. Yeah, so that's exactly what happened. Nikita decided to be a bus driver. No, I'm kidding. He had 2 passions, PHP and LLVM. So at some point he decided to focus on LLVM more. And let's get to this story, how that happened. So PHP started in 1995. It was not even a language. It was more like a set of tools for Rasmus to build websites. It became a real language a little bit later when 2 Israeli students, Andy and Ziv, they rewrote engine and they started a company called Zend, which is basically from their names. This company was a PHP company that stood behind the language for some time, that's a little bit of history. In 2011, Laravel was announced, and around the same time, Nikita Popov started contributing to PHP while still being in high school. And it took him 10 years, but at some point he became one of the most prominent PHP contributors. But Zend, the PHP company, stopped existing in 2015. It basically went through a series of acquisitions and lost influence in the language, and that's how we ended up with a situation where there's no company and almost no paid developers. So we hired Nikita in around end of 2018, and he started working for JetBrains starting from 2019. And that left us with 2 people. We understood this problem, and Joe Watkins, one of the other core developers of PHP, he wrote this blog post stating this problem of having just 2 developers. So we reached out to Joe immediately, asking like, hey, what we can do with this situation? And Nikita decided to become a bus driver soon after. So we were wondering, does it make sense to hire another developer to work on PHP core, or maybe there's something more long-term solution? So these companies, they teamed up. These are prominent PHP companies in the community. They teamed up to create the PHP Foundation. So the PHP Foundation is a non-profit organization that develops PHP language. And the mission of the foundation is to ensure this long-term prosperity of the language, but what exactly that means? First and foremost, of course, just add new features, improve language, make it more performant, and basically that's all this kind of stuff. But also, what's more important is maintenance. This is something you cannot do being an enthusiast, you know? Yeah, like creating an RFC for a language, this is something you can do in your free time. But fixing bugs, that's not always fun. So people need to get paid for that. And to address this buzz factor issue, we want to make the project better for contributors. Because, as you may know, the PHP language is written in C, not in PHP. So it's not, the code base is different. So it should be easier for developers to start. And one last item is addressing PHP's public image, which is, I think, the the hardest task for PHP Foundation. As for language decisions, we do have this RFC process, which exists for like 20 years, and PHP Foundation doesn't have control over it, what makes it to the language. And it's good, because the community should decide what's good for the language. So I mentioned these 10 companies, but many companies later joined this effort to make PHP a better place. So these are just a few, the top sponsors of the foundation. And what's good about the PHP Foundation is that the whole budget, everything is public, so you can go check who donated, who sponsors the PHP Foundations, and where we spend it. So all the information is public. You can go and check it, and that's thanks to the Open Collective, the platform that we use to do the things. And who is behind the PHP Foundation? So we started with 6 part-time developers, the governing board, and the community, people that help us with the website and other things. And you can see Rasmus Lerdorf, the creator of PHP. He's also part of the community. He helps us with some questions from time to time. And this year, we extended the team, and now it's 10 developers. Some of them are even full-time. So the money that Foundation gets goes to pay those developers. And I'm paid by JetBrains to work on the foundation full-time, and Dmitry Stogov is paid by Zen. So these are people now, 11 developers and me, who are paid to work on PHP and maintain the PHP language. So it's much better than 2, right? What's the language impact? So if you check the top contributors, 7 from 12 top contributors are working for the foundation. It's almost half of the commits. But what exactly they're working on? And I just want to highlight some cool things, not just maybe features things. So Gina, she's working on new function autoloading that will help improve performance of the autoloading. Ilya Tuvilo, he works on property hooks, which is a kind of accessors, will allow you to move any setters, getters, whatsoever from your code, and pattern matching. Arno is working on lazy objects and generics. So yeah, this is, I mean, but yeah, so generics is a really hard topic. So we'll share some information how it goes. There's still some uncertainties and risks there, but at least the work is going on, and Arno is working full-time on that. Mate is working on some read-only improvements, and specifically clone with syntax, and Jakub with JSON schema support. And Derek works on the new tool for installing extensions, basically to make extensions first-class citizen in PHP, so that you can use your composer JSON to specify all extensions you need and just install them. Yeah, these are new members that joined this year. You may know some of them. And yeah, we'll see what they're going to do. But what's more important is something, as I mentioned, that is not that fancy, that you don't see all the time. It's this maintenance stuff, the performance stuff, documentation, infrastructure, everything like that, and security. So we received investment from Sovereign Tech Fund. It's a German government-based fund, and they donated, not donated, but they invested money in the PHP Foundation for several projects, and one of the projects is security audit, which is quite expensive thing. We wouldn't be able to afford it without the PHP Foundation and this kind of investment. And yeah, we teamed up with OSTIF. It's an organization that does these security audits for open source projects. They did it for almost any projects, you know, like Linux, kernel, Node.js, whatever. So yeah, this is coming this year. And besides that, for this year, we of course want more financial stability, because most of our sponsors are one-time sponsors, and we want more like recurrent sponsors, those who donate every year. But one important thing I want to mention is the shape. The goal that we have is to shape the roadmap for PHP. And this is a hard thing, because as I mentioned previously, we don't necessarily have ability to decide what's making into PHP, because we don't control the RFC process. There's still some barriers, and that's good. So what we can really do is shape the roadmap for PHP Foundation. at least we can shape what's, where we put money, where the efforts go. And then some of that efforts will make it to the language. But how do we shape this roadmap? First, we have advisory board. So advisory board is a group of representatives of some major sponsors. I mentioned some of them. Laravel, of course, there. Taylor is in our Slack, and we share some our updates, some insights, and things that are coming soon. And we expect some feedback on the features that we are working on and the money we are putting into. We analyze competitors to some degree, and that's random competitors that I picked. That's not necessarily what we are looking into. And there are many differences, many cool things that we can learn from them. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So Rust, for example, they have official toolchain to manage the language, to install things. You have everything out of the box with Rust, like compiler or on any platform, static analyzer, whatever you want. With Go, they have many things, but one thing I noticed that they have really good backward compatibility promise, which I think is really important for the language. Some PHP doesn't have it really clear way, so sometimes PHP breaks things in a not pleasant way. So we don't want. BC breaks is something that will be you need them to move forward, but they should be justified. With Kotlin, there are many things there. It's a language made by JetBrains, but all classes are final there, and they don't even have this unfinalized package. How do they cope with it? They have class extension, so in any place of your project, you can just add method to any class. So it's kind of like Laravel macroses, but available in the language. Could be nice for PHP too. With JavaScript, again, there are many runtimes with JavaScript. They have differences with Node.js. What I like is that they have this stability index. Basically, some features they can go to language being not ready yet, and then they can shape and based on the feedback from the users. With PHP, I think we're trying to make features perfect right away and without having this quick feedback loop. I think this could help PHP move maybe in a better way, iterative way. Other option is measuring. So there are different things we could measure, and I just will mention one thing. It's the usage of features that already made it to the language. And well, telemetry in PHP interpreter, that's not going to happen ever. Some interpreters do have that. For example, Go. It's disabled by default, but they have it. There could be a composer plugin. I wrote a proof of concept for that. Just when you do some, composer install, it sends some statistics about what features you use in your project. So yeah, you can check if you want. We can just analyze open source projects out there and see what they are using. I'll show you how we do it. And we have this sort of data collection in PHP Storm. It's disabled by default, but if you go to settings and check this checkbox, then it will send anonymized statistics of how you use your IDE. It has nothing about your files and everything like that. It's GDPR compliant, but we can still collect information about the PHP features. And I'll show you how this looks like. So let's think about how we use certain features. I just analyzed different ways. So with PHP Storm, it's a lot of projects that we analyze. I just took a small portion of it. With the JetBrains corpus, it's just open source stuff. And SourceGraph is another tool to analyze open source projects. So this is how PHP Storm statistics look like. So you can see different features and how many projects use them. For example, I would imagine that short array syntax with square brackets is used in 100% projects, but it's not. It's actually just 60. And with the open source analysis is just a regex search. So, how many projects use enums? So, not that many, but we are getting there, you know, it grows. With read-only, it's properties and classes. Why is the difference in the data? So I think open source graph corpus, they take top projects. And top projects, they tend to use more these new features of PHP. Fibers. Okay, but does it mean that Fibers is a bad feature? Yeah, it's used in like, what, couple projects, couple packages, but those packages are then used with other tools, in PHP 10 and others, so they're kind of useful features. So it's, with these statistics, you should be careful when you're thinking about them. So attributes is one of the best features of PHP. It was, yeah, it's adopted quite a lot and goes fast. So, and those were just examples. So we can do this analysis for any kind of features. Another approach is just brainstorming. And here's the thing with brainstorming. You can ask this question, but this is a bad question because it kind of shifts you to, you know, or makes you come up with solution. But what we really want is your problems, because the solution could be made in different ways. It could be in the language, it could be in the tooling, it could be in PHP Storm, for example, or yeah, different things. So I came up with a short survey. You'll see this QR code later, so yeah, don't worry. So questions should be about your projects, your experiences. And any language feature is always a trade-off. So for example, like what this code is doing. I mean, I cannot tell right away. But if I rewrite it with for each loop, I can clearly say that it's just a sum of squares of an array. And why is it important? Because it could be on the language level. For example, Golang, they like consciously decided not to add reduce and map functions in the language. Because of this, because they want their language to be simple. They want to keep it more simple. So, well, you clapped when I asked about generics, or I told about generics. And when I asked, do you want runtime generics, everyone would say yes. But what if it comes with cost? Then the answer is not that obvious, right? Yeah, with different approaches to solving things, you sometimes need to, you know, be ready to change your mind. So many people, when they talk about object-oriented programming, they think that interfaces will never or should never have implementations. But they can, and why not? And of course, it's always a trade-off between complexity and value. So some small feature, as I showed you, like, I don't know, maybe attributes not that small, but read-only or enums is smaller feature, but it brings a lot of value. Whereas generics or some other things, they are super complex. And the value, I don't know, you need to think about it. So I try to encourage you to tell and show what you want. And I'll go first. This is my PHP wish list. So first, official toolchain. Just have everything out of the box. Like you install PHP and you already have Composer, static analyzer, and you have a tool that installs PHP on any platform. Yeah, kind of like Laravel Herd, but for official, for PHP. Having modern stuff for basically web APIs, bundled extensions. I really like Swool. It's nice to have it on board. Local constants, but I think for PHP it's kind of read-only variables would be more correct way to name that. And of course, multi-line short closures and compiling PHP to binary. This is something I guess Kevin mentioned with FrankenPHP, but it would be nice to have it out of the box so that you have the whole app compiled in one file and you can deploy it to wherever you want. So my colleague Brent wrote a nice PHP wish list. Seb wrote a nice one. I don't know. Yeah, Seb is here. And Ryan wrote, I don't know if Ryan is here, but he wrote nice wish list. And what's good is that two things from his wish list are already in works. So it's pattern matching and generics. So please share your PHP wish lists. And if you don't have time for sharing wish list, I started these GitHub discussions on PHP Foundation organization on GitHub. So please just go throw your ideas or messages, whatever you want there. Questions, help us. And if you don't have time for that, consider sponsoring the PHP Foundation. And more importantly, ask your employer, your company, to become a member. On this page, we have a few things available for extra things available for sponsors. Of course, help us just by spreading the word, asking stuff, telling your stories, PHP stories, and everything. So yeah, thank you. And this is the QR link with all the links mentioned in my talk, including the survey, the GitHub discussions, and the PHP website. So please, in this survey, by the way, there is a checkbox, and if you add your email, then you can get a PHP Storm Elephant. This is exclusive one. We won't make a new batch. So yeah, thank you, folks.
Magic. Thank you for the talk. So I got one question.
Sure.
One question from Sven. He's asking, you have your wish list.
Yeah.
If you can pick one of the item of the wish list that should be ready tomorrow in PHP, what's going to be the one that you pick?
PHP toolchain for me. Basically, I want to be able to install PHP on any platform without Googling it and without understanding, having Xdebug with me, having Composer, everything right away. That's my wish.
Okay. From the anonymous user. Do you use DD?
As a matter of fact, yes, I do. Yes, and I really like it. So I'm in both camps. I use Xdebug, but I also use DD. And I even built a small PHP Storm plugin that shows DD output in this plugin. So sort of like, I don't remember the name of this tool. Yeah, it's kind of like Ray, but Ray is, yeah, it's kind of like Ray. So by Spassy, they show it in a separate window, but I wanted to be in my PHP Storm, so I built similar thing that shows it in PHP Storm. So yeah, very useful, so I like both.
Good pronunciation of Spassy.
Yeah.
You're learning. Okay, thank you, Roman.
Thank you.